Hilchei Sha'ar Avos Hatumos Perik Chi. Habo Reishi Verubi B'mayim Shuvim. Shenoflu al Reishi V'Arube Shleisha Lugim Mayim Shuvim. Is Harehu Kisheni L'Tuma Ache Yidbel. This is again one of the Yudches Gzeris that Chacham will gaze at, that someone that's Bo Reishi Verubi B'mayim Shuvim, or Shebo al Reishi V'Arube Shleisha Lugim of Mayim Shuvim. So either way he becomes Tumah, as a din of Tumah, of a Sheni L'Tumah. And v'mnoga ba'oichlin is osan shlishi, which obviously is only if it's truma. If oichlin chulin can become a shlishi, so v'mnoga ba'oichlin osan shlishi. V'mnoga b'mashkin, if he touches mashkin, timon v'osan tchila l'tami eichlin mashkin acherim. Like we learned that a sheni l'tuma has the special din that even though he's a sheni, and when he touches oichel it could only become a shlishi, but when he touches mashke, the mashke becomes a rishon. On the other end, the same idea, same like we learned Benegeh Tumas Yadayim. Just like by Tumas Yadayim, and Alderazeh by a tumah of someone that's Oichel Tmeim. So we learned before that he becomes a din, the Yadayim have a din of a Sheni, or someone that was Oichel Tmeim has a din of a Sheni. And Memela, when he touches Mashke, it's just like when a Sheni touches Mashke, the Mashke becomes a Rishon. So over here also, the Mashke becomes a Rishon. But there's another din that a Mashke Rishon could be metame a keli. That's another din. There's two din in the Rabbanon. One din in the Rabbanon that the sheni makes the mashke into a rishon, and then another din in the Rabbanon that a mashke rishon could be metame kelim. So this din in the Rabbanon that a mashke rishon could be metame kelim, that doesn't apply to a mashke that became tamei through the fact that it touched either yadayim tmeis or it touched someone that was oichel tmeim. And now we're learning someone that became Tamei, became a Sheni, through the fact that he was Bor Reishi V'Rubim Mayim Shuvim. So even though Taka, when he touches Mashke, the Mashke becomes a Rishon, but it doesn't become a Rishon for that Inyan to be Matame Kel. That's what he's saying. So therefore, V'mnaga Be'echlon Oson Shlishi, V'mnaga Be'mashkin is Timon V'Oson Tchila, so the Mashke becomes a Rishon L'Tumah, L'Tame Echlon Mashkin Acherim, that it should have a din of a Rishon, that it could be Matame Echlon Mashkin Acherim, and make them into Tamei, Avalei L'Tamei Kelim. But L'Tamei Kelim, that there isn't. Since it's Ikri Midrabanan, so we're learning about three things there, that Ikri Midrabanan, and they're a Rishon that comes from them, that's the Yodayim, and someone that was Eichel Tmeim, and Alderes is someone that was Bar Reishi V'Rubim Mayim Shuvim, so he's not going to go ahead and be, that Rishon that comes through touching him, won't be able to be M'Tamei Kelim. U'mepnei ma gozu tuma al Adam zeh. Why would they geyser tuma that someone that's bar reishi v'rubim mayim shuvim, or someone that was nafal of shleish lugim mayim shuvim? He should be tamei. Mepnei shayitfuli yem tevelim b'maris shemimeim roim. So the people that had to be tevel, they were first tevel in mayim, which that mayim was mayim roim. It wasn't water that was gishmak to leave the water on you. Memela, they had a bad smell to it. And after they were tevel in the mikveh, they would go and wash themselves with mayim she'uvim derech nekiyas. It became like a regular thing that first you go to the mikveh, and then you go ahead and wash yourself with mayim she'uvim, like you would take a shower, so to speak. People were thinking, shemayim she'uvim shereichzim b'em b'achrei nehem shebetarim. Since the Seder was that first they went into the mikveh, and then they went into the mayim shuvim, when they washed themselves with the mayim shuvim, so people started thinking that be'emes, the washing themselves with the mayim shuvim after the mikveh, that was really what was matar. They thought it was just a b'zaminik to go ahead and first be tevel in the mikveh, and then wash yourself with mayim shuvim. Leficha gazru shekol shebor reishi v'rubim mayim shuvim. Eishanofla al reishi v'rube is nitma v'nasa kisheni l'tumah. So in order to prevent that, these people that are going to the mikveh shouldn't wash themselves afterwards with these mayim shuvim. And the reason why they shouldn't wash themselves with mayim shuvim is because if they're going to start washing themselves with mayim shuvim after they go to the mikveh, they're going to think that the mikveh is really the mayim shuvim which is afterwards and not the mikveh that they went into originally. And therefore they instituted that someone that goes to the mikveh and then afterwards goes into mayim shuvim, so Memela, so he's tamei, he has a din of tamei. He has a din of a sheni l'tumah. Now, afilu Torah, now l'chura would sound like that's only applying someone that first went to the mikveh, and then he was tevel mayim shuvim. He was mechuyev to go to the mikveh, and now he went ahead and was Tevel, and then he went into Mayim Shuvim. So there would be a svara to say maybe the Mayim Shuvim undid what the mikveh did. But let's say if he didn't have to go to the mikveh, so maybe over there l'chura there's no din. So that the Rambam continues. Afilu Torah she'enet full yet. He wasn't Tevel that day. Im naflu al reishi v'rubi shleishis lugim Mayim Shuvim, eishabar al reishi v'rubi Mayim Shuvim, hareze k'sheinu l'tuma at sheyitvel. So he has the din of a sheinu l'tuma. So Be'emes, other Rishonim learned that there's a difference between the naflu al reishi v'rubi Mayim Shuvim as opposed to Tavod Mayim Shuvim. The Rambam doesn't make any chilukim. The Rambam says the svara would be that someone that had to be Tevel, there's like such a svara, that someone that had to be Tevel, and then after he was Tevel, he was Rachas Mayim Shuvim, so it's Kilu, the Mayim Shuvim took away the mile of the mikvah. And Memela, so he can't be Tevel Mayim Shuvim on that day. That would be a svara, and it's brought down in Allah, such a svara. Masha'in Kain Lepeil, the Rambam says that this din is a din b'negea someone that was rachatz b'mayim she'uvim, regardless after the mikveh, before the, without a mikveh. So the Chacham instituted that someone that was rechatz b'mayim she'uvim, so that person has a din of a sheni l'tum. That's this din. Afilu nachamal, afilu Torah she'enet tful yem. Im naflo al reishi v'rubi shleishis lugim mayim she'uvim. Shebo reishi v'rubi mayim she'uvim. So the din is areze k'shei l'tum at sheyitvel. Toval, ain't it tzarech harav shemesh, mepnei sheikar tumas u'midavreim. So even though the peli has a din tomei midrabanan, so l'chura there would be a svara that everyone that's tomei, when he goes to the mikveh, he has to first wait for harav shemesh in order for the gemara tara. So now I'm saying no, that this tumah, which is habar reishi v'rubi b'mayim shuvim, has a din of tumah, that becomes a sheni l'tumah, is a sheni l'tumah midrabanan. He has a din of sheni l'tumah, but as soon as he's tevel, he doesn't need any harav shemesh. And v'chein ha'eichel eichel tmeim, or v'asheis mashkel tmeim, v'toval, which we learned before, that when you eichel mashkel tmeim, you also become tummy as a sheni l'tumah. But lepel, once he's tevel, is also in tzarech harav shemesh, because lepel, since his tumah is only such a din derabanan, so this din derabanan of tumah for a person that was eichel tmeim shasa mashkel tmeim, or someone that was bar reishi v'rubi mayim shuvim, is a din derabanan which he has to be tevel, but he doesn't need harav shemesh. V'chein kelim shenitmu b'mashkin, which we learned that mashkin tmeim could be metame a rishon, a mashkin which is a rishon l'tumah could be metame kelim midrabanan, is also kiven shemat bilon toaru ve'ein tzrichem harav shemesh. Why? Mipnei shetumas elu ikru midraveim. So the Rambam is saying here three situations. One din of abar reishi v'rub mayim shuvim, another din b'negeya someone that was eichel tmeim, and al derech someone that a keli which became tummy through mashke. So these three which are only tummy midrabanan, so they need tefillah, but on the other end they don't need harav shemesh. Halacha beis mi shenaflo shleishis lugim mayim shuvim mishnei kelim e mishleisha is im hischel hasheni actually pasuk rishain. In other words, there was no hefsek. The water was going from the first, and before the water finished from the first, the second started, or before the water finished from the second, if there were three, the third started. So it's mitzdarfim. However, v'imlav, if in other words, there was shleish lugim fell on him, but lepel it wasn't the basachas. In other words, there was a hefsek in between. There was no water falling him at all. Is a mitzdarfim. That's talking about when could a tzirav help that it was started before the other one finished. That's when we're dealing with 2 or 3 kelim. However, naflu mi'arba kelim, if it fell from 4 kelim, is a mitzdarf, and it's not mitzdarf. Afal pi she'yischel zeh, actually posik zeh, harei zetor. So that's din number 1. So the din is in order for it to be a din of naflu al reshiv al rubei, shleish lug ma'im shuvim, the most it could be is from 3 kelim. That's number 1. And when it's from 3 kelim, it has to be that the kelim started before the other kelim stopped. In other words, you can't have finished in the first and then starting the second, or starting the second and finishing the third. The second has to start before the first finished, and al derezeh, the third has to start before the second finished. Yeah. Now, naflu al reishe avalei al rubei. It has to be shleish luga mayim shuvim shenafel al reishe al rubei. Now, nafel al reishe avalei al rubei. Shenafel al rubei avalei al reishe. Shenafel al reishe bilvad mul maila. No, it was on his head mul maila it fell. It's not the ruby, the rest of the body. It knows the Seder Advarim, he poured from the head, and then it was nimshach on the rest of the body. Over here was no, on the head was separately, and from what the water that went on the head didn't go onto the body, which was next to the head, and then on the body was minatzad or milmata. Bal rubi noflu minatzad milmata is arizator. Ache yiplu al reishe bal rubi asomach l'reishe, and it has to be kedarke. It has to be kedarke, as you're pouring from the top, and the water is going on his head, and also al rubi. V'chein, that's been geya noflu al reishe al rubi shleisha lug mayim shuvim. V'chein, there's also been geya in bo reishe b'mayim shuvim. V'lei bo rubi, he put his head into mayim shuvim, but there's not rubi. A bo rubi or v'lo bo reishe. Ishbo reishe bulvad, ubo mishar gufi v'rubi b'mayim shuvim milmate min hatzad. In other words, his head is in the water, and the rest of his body, in other words, there's the reishe v'rubi of his body in the water, but they're not like behemshech. In other words, let's say he's bending over, he's like an arch, and his head is in the water on one side, and the rest of his body is in the water on the other side, and lepel is reishe v'rubi, but on the other end, it's not behemshech. He has to be bo reishi v'rubi b'mayim shuvim, and the rubi has to be the rubi which is next to the reishi and kedarke. Now haba mireishi v'rubi achetzi b'mayim shuvim. On one side he was bo b'mayim shuvim, and he was bo. He went into mayim shuvim, and v'noflo lachetzi acher mayim shuvim is hail v'chetzi b'nefila v'chetzi b'biyas Torah. A person was, let's say, lie down in a swimming pool, and he would lie down in a swimming pool on the side, so it's like half of his head and half of his body are all in the swimming pool, and then he has water pouring on top of him. So that's his bo reishi v'rubei, half of reishi v'rubei. He's boring b'mayim shuvim, and half of the reishi v'rubei he has water pouring on him, so it's not working. So b'kitzer, in order it has to be bo reishi v'rubei b'mayim shuvim, and it has to be kedarke, it has to be the rubei which is samach l'reishi. And al derech zeh, it has to be noflu al reishi v'al rubi mayim shuvim. It has to be noflu kedarke. It has to be noflu kedarke, and only then is he tor. Halacha daled. Hoyu shleishes halugim shenoflu olav eshebo behem mikzosen shuvim umikzosen einam shuvim. Part of the water was mayim sheinam shuvim. It was water that was rainwater. Eish nesarav behem yayin v'shemen udvash v'cholav and those other mashke which wasn't water. So the din is hariza Torah. Ad sheyu ashleisha kulam mayim shuvim. It has to be 3 lugim of mayim shuvim. It can't be 3 lugim of mayim, where part of it is shuvim, this part is not shuvim. It can't be 3 lugim of liquid, which part of it is mayim and part of it is not mayim. It has to be 3 lugim of mayim shuvim. Now, shleishis lugim elu shenoflu alator eshabobem vitim uhu is kivin shenas shein lutumir is the chara mayim elu tmeim. Now we know that mayim that touches a sheni l'tumah becomes tummy. It becomes actually a rishon. Becomes a rishon l'tumah. So over here also these shlei shalugim mayim shuvim, which are being metame, this person, which is either they're falling on him or he's entering into this mayim, so he's becoming a sheni l'tumah. So they're making him into a sheni l'tumah, and he's making them tummy. Is kivin shenas geshem l'tumah hari amayim elu tmeim shari noga b'sheni, because this mayim are touching a sheni. Bari elu amayim emum l'zat. So the water says, so to speak, to the person that was originally Torah, Timenu we say, we were metami him because he was Torah, and by us falling on him or him coming into us, we were metami him, and the Timonus, and now in return he was metami us. Halachei. But Rishena, so another one of the Yudches Gzeres, the Gemara says in Shabbos. But the Mishnah mentions in Shabbos, they would put kikri shel truma, they would put loaves of truma next to the svarim, the Sifrei HaKedesh, Sifrei Teira, ve'emrim zeh kedesh v'zeh kedesh, they're both holy. Memela, it's appropriate that truma should be next to the Sifrei Teira. The problem was, uboyin ha'achborim, so the achborim would come, and they would be coming to eat the truma, and Levaila was v'kedesh asvarim, they would tear the svarim. Is leficha gozru shekol truma shetiga be'echad mikisvi hakedesh. That was the reason for the takana, that truma that touches kisvi hakedesh, nitmes becomes tummy. Bareihi kishlishi letuma, it's as if it's a shlishi letuma. Ki'ilu nogu b'sheni. So mele the truma knows the truma becomes puzzle. When truma becomes a shlishi, becomes puzzle. So the kisvi hakedesh legabi truma has a din of a sheni. So it has a din legabi truma kisvi hakedesh has a din of a sheni. Ki'ilu nogu b'sheni. V'nimtza kol kisvi hakedesh peislis hatruma kisheni. Kisvi hakedesh pasel truma kisheni. So that's the first din. that Kisvi HaKedesh are paslus a truma kisheni. V'lei eid, elami shahoyu yodav teiris. V'noga be'echad mikisvi HaKedesh is nasu yodav shneis, umetamin es atruma v'es hamashkin. Now, normally the rule is that Yodayim become Tomei only from a Rishon L'Tumah, not from a Shein L'Tumah. But over here there was a special takana that if Yodayim touches Kisvi HaKedesh, so that Yodayim which touch Kisvi HaKedesh could be Metamet Truma. Nochamal, V'lei Eid, El Misha Yodav Teiris, and V'noga Be'echad Mikisvi HaKedesh. So the din is Nasu Yodav Shnias, so his Yodayim become a Shnias, which means the Yodayim, that's the din of Yodayim which needs Netila, becomes Shnias, umetamen es atruma v'es hamashkin. V'aval pi she'ena yadayim mistames ele merishon l'tumah k'mish b'yanu, is nevertheless he mistames min ha-sefer. That was an extra takana that the yadayim should become tomei min ha-sefer. And this is an extension of this din that Kisvi HaKedesh is mitamei is atruma. In other words, if truma touches Kisvi HaKedesh, they become tomei. So the truma becomes a shlishi. And here the chiddush is that even if like Kisvi HaKedesh touches Yodayim, and the Yodayim touch the Truma, they also become Tomei. It's like a chizuk to that Isser of Kisvi HaKedesh having any contact with Truma. So even if the Kisvi HaKedesh didn't directly touch the Truma, the Kisvi HaKedesh touched the Yodayim, and the Yodayim touched the Truma, so it's also Tomei. I suppose if you'll start putting the Kisvi HaKedesh next to the Truma, and they won't mamish be touching the Truma, so then there's still the Shash of the Achbarim. So therefore it's instituted that if you all go ahead and touch the Kisvi HaKedesh, and then you go ahead and touch the Truma, that Truma becomes possible. Halacha Vov. Ritzuis Tfilin Matfilin. Now the din is that Kisvi HaKedesh is Matami Yadayim, Tfilin is also Matami Yadayim. So the Ritzuis HaTfilin, while they're attached to the Tfilin, or Vigilyan Shebesefer, Shalamayla V'Shalamata, Shebetchila V'Shebesefer, and there's the margin around the Sefer. There's the Sefer itself where you wrote, that's the Kisvi HaKedesh. But the margin on the side of the sefer, on top of the sefer, on the bottom of the sefer, which there's nothing written there, they're part of the sefer. And if they were cut off, so even though they were originally part of the sefer, but now they're not matamis yadayim. But if they weren't cut off, they're still attached to the sefer, or the sefer shenimchak, v'nishtayir beishmeinim v'chomish asius. The sefer was really erased, but there's 85 asius left. Or a Megillah, if you have a Chatchila Megillah, you started writing a Sefer Torah, you didn't have a Sefer Torah. You only started at the beginning of a Sefer Torah. Shekosem B'Manat Torah, you started writing the Torah al Manas to finish it. And Lepel, there's only Shmeina v'Chomish Asius. Kiparshes v'Hi ben Soren, ben Seoren, is Arei Elu Metamis Yadayim. It's Nachamal. Kisvi HaKedesh is Metamis Yadayim. Tefillin is also Metamis Yadayim. This, if you have Ritzuis HaTfillin together with the Tefillin, they're also Metamis Yadayim. Now that is at the margin, the gillion of the sefer shebemayla shalamata shebetchila shebeseif also matamid yadayim. If you have a sefer shenimchak, as long as you have lelakid bei shmeina v'chomish asius kiparsha v'hi ben seorin, that's also matamid yadayim. And if you have a Megillah which was l'chatchila never a sefer Torah, and you only wrote 85 asius, is also matamid yadayim. Then the Rambam continues, v'leidivri Torah bulvad, not only Torah mamish, there's chamisha chumshe Torah, elokol kisvi hakedesh afilu shir hashirim. The Kehelish and Divri Chachma is Matamis Yadayim. So it's a little schwer to understand what's Afilu Shir Hashirim for Divri Kehelish. It's saying Divri Chachma. Mishir Hashirim and Divri Kehelish is Zichar written by Ruach HaKedesh. There's the part of the Kisvi HaKedesh. What's Pshat Shein Divri Chachma? So the Rambam brings that the Chiddush is since they are Divri Chachma. Maybe it's hard to understand it, and therefore maybe the Chash of that's going to be next to the Trum is not really so motzi because Bechlal they didn't hold these svarim so much. It was to put it next to the Truma because they didn't have the svarim. So it's a davar sheni motzi. So the Chiddush is no, that Lepel, there was one takana that Kol Kisvi HaKedesh is Metamis Yadayim. Halacha Zayin, Targum Shebe Ezra v'Shebe Daniel, the part of Ezra and Daniel that's written in Lashon HaTargum, is Arei Mechlal Kisvi HaKedesh, that's part of the Kisvi HaKedesh. Memela is negea to that they are also Metamis Yadayim. Aval Targum Shekosvi Ivris, in those, instead of writing the original, the way it's written in Ezra, you wrote it Ivris. You wrote it in Lashon HaKedesh. Or the Ivris Shekosvi Targum, and knows something that's written in the Torah Lashon HaKedesh, and you wrote it in Targum. Eisha Kosav Kisvi HaKedesh, that's what we're talking about. The words were written in Targum or in Ivris. Or words that were originally in the Torah Be'ivris. You wrote Betargum, or something that's written originally Betargum, you wrote Be'ivris. Eisha Kosav Kisvi HaKedesh B'Ksav Ivri. The script is a script of Ivri, not Ksav not Ksav Ashuri like we have our Sefer Teres. Is nevertheless so therefore Einon Metamis Yadayim. Nor is Targum, the original Targum of Ezra and Daniel is Metamis Yadayim, but Fakert, if you take the Targum, you translate it into Ivri. So you take Ivri and you translate it into Targum, then it's not Metamis Yadayim. And Al Derech Zeh, if you change the script, instead of Ksav Ashuri, you do Ksav Ivri, it's Einon Metamis Yadayim. Achi Iksuvim Ashuris Al Ho'er Ubediyeh. It has to be a proper Ksav, a kosher Ksav, which is Ksav Ashuris, and it has to be Al Ho'er and Ubediyeh. Halacha Ches, HaKesev Halal Ushma Litinik Lehislamid, where you wrote, Aval Pisha Einer Ashoy, Be'atzim Meikra Dedina, Bisman Hazeh were Mekel, because Eis Las is Lashem, but Meikra Dedina, you're not allowed to write, you're only allowed to write a Sefer Teira. Ain't case in Satera Megillah, you're not allowed to really write just a part of the Teira, Halal or Shma, the Tinik l'Islamid, but L'Pel, if a person wrote it, is Hare'elu Matam N'Siyadayim, and L'Pel, it's Matam N'Siyadayim. Halacha Tes, HaMeshiches v'Aretzuei Shetofrun L'Sefer. You have a Sefer, and you connect to it strings or straps, is Aval Pi She'eino Rashoy L'Kayma. You're not allowed to really have a Sefer which has strings or straps attached to it, unless it's a shamer of the Sefer. But stamazay to have meshichas and ritzuis strapped to, connected to the sefer, you're not allowed to. Abulepeil calls man shebuchubarin l'sefer, as long as they're connected to the sefer, is metamed yadayim. They are metamed yadayim. Halacha yud. Tik shel sefer. There's the tik in which you hold the sefer, the box in which you hold the sefer, like in the Svardish Svarim Mistama. They hold the sefer Teira instead of like we have our Eitz Chaims. They have like a whole kestel. Or the Tevishal Sefer. The Tevishal Sefer is more like an urn which you put the Sefer in. Umitpes Chesasvarim, and the mental of the Sefer. Bisman Shein Tfuris, while the mental is attached, is sewn to the Sefer, is these three things: Tikshal Sefer, Tevishal Sefer, Umitpes Chesasvarim, while the Tfuris is Metaminus Yadayim. Aval Abrachas, if you have a bracha, Aval Pishiyeshba Me'esir Shel Shem. In the brachas lies the name of the Eibishter and a lot of minyanim of Teira, but nevertheless, einon metam nisayadayim. It's not metam yadayim. Halacha yadalav sifri aminim einon metam nisayadayim. The sifri aminim, a sefer that a min wrote, even svarim that are found by minim, are also they're not metam nisayadayim. Parsha Seita, Heil Olam Chikei Medis, where the Kohen wrote the Parsha Seita. Is Heil Lemchike Medis is Einon Metamis Yadayim. It's not Metamis Yadayim.